Hi everybody, this is 𝐬𝐻𝐫𝐞𝐭, and truth be told, I'm sort of extremely nervous to be making such a video. Now, this isn't one of my typical bullying and discrimination videos, but it is just to, release something that has happened 3 years ago, and it's kind of goes along with what I've already been doing, releasing some things, and hopefully through all of this, it'd be, health-wise a benefit to me, as well as an encouragement to other people to do the same. Not that they have to go on YouTube and go public, but just to release and take out these things that's inundating them, that's like the weight of the world that's within them, and such, because it's unhealthy to hold things in. If you're curious of why I'm pacing back and forth, just watch my other videos, because this is my third YouTube video like this. And I was thinking and deliberating and thinking for hours, probably at least 1 hour, going over this in my head, like thinking, should I do it, should I not do it, like come forward with such a video like this. And the truth is that I am a bit nervous to reveal what it is, and I'm going to try my best. We'll see how it goes, not to reveal a lot of the specifics, but to say what happened. Again, nobody necessarily bullied or discriminated against me. I was at a meeting for an organization that we get along a lot. I mean, fairly, we get along a lot. I love what I do. It's basically us volunteers getting together, but I'm really hesitant to say what type of meeting it was, what organization it was, because it's not the organization, and frankly, it's not most of the other volunteers. The fact is that it happened, and I didn't tell most of the details to anybody in the past 3 years. The date was August 24th, 2017. I'm filming this on August 24th, 2020, which is the 3rd year anniversary. I don't believe in anything magical, but it's just more closure this way. And you can watch my other videos if that didn't make sense. And also, just in case, if you're totally brand new to who I am autistic. This is Autism in Action. This is why I'm pacing back and forth. This is what we go through. I'm the royalty published author of an award-winning book that's being sold around the world, explaining autism, specifically Asperger's syndrome, colloquially, from a first-hand perspective, not a second-hand perspective. And anyway, I guess I'll just begin. So 3 years ago, well, let me first set the scene. If you've watched my previous videos from August 18th to the 19th, which is quite a lengthy video, and my video from the 21st of this year, if you watched those videos, then you could sort of follow along the things that built up to this. And if you also watch my July 16th video, all of these 3 videos that I just alluded to took place in 2017, and I just happened to make a YouTube video on the 3rd year anniversary, thinking it's time to stop running. It's time to release some things and talk things out and explain how I feel, especially as an autistic person, and right now an incurable, or I have an incurable autism, or that's what most people say, and therefore you just have to learn to live with it. But you could do everything you can. It's other people that just need to accept you for who you are, and that's my fight and everything. But anyway, if you've been following this channel, I was bullied and discriminated on July 16th, as well as August 18th to the 19th by that man at the park, and the 21st. And those were just major incidences, not to mention all the little incidences throughout 2017, and not to mention all the little to not as little incidences going back, frankly, several years, pretty much since kindergarten, if I really come forward honestly. And I talk a little bit about it in my book and what that does to a person like me and everything. But anyway, 2017 was really getting heated. Not just that it was August, but I mean also, socially, mentally, just heated and such. It's like wherever I go, there's people that just give me odd looks. They stare at me, they smirk, they laugh, and it's like I'm just a normal person walking down a public Ralph's grocery market or a public park or a public sidewalk, whether I'm here in Orange County or I'm in downtown Los Angeles. And it's like I just get these looks, not from every single person, but I just get these looks, and it's been going on for like years and years. I mean, 2014 was one of the worst years, but anyway, that would be a very long story, a very long video. Well, going back to even 2014, every year, 2015, 2016, 2017, there's been a lot of buildup of bad memories that I have, that I have had, mostly at Orange Coast College. Well, I mean, by the people, not the college. I mean, the college was good, a lot of friendly professors, most of them, but just, just the fact that it's just how I'm viewed. I mean, even never mind, that'd be a long story. But I have a lot of stories, and the thing about autism is I can't forget it, no matter how much it is. And I kid you not, the amount of pain that it takes, or that it has, the amount of pain that that anyone would feel over one incident is the same amount of pain as if it happened 2 seconds ago. So, for example, back in kindergarten, when those two classmates yelled at me and saying, "Go away, Matthew, you're not our friend," and everything, the amount of, detachment and pain and forlorn, lonely feelings is still with me as if I'm just hearing it. Now, I don't have a photographic, or even better, an eidetic memory. I don't have either of those two memories, but I just remember a lot of stuff, and I still feel as if certain things happened a couple of seconds ago and such. And sometimes it's bullying, teasing, discrimination, but other times it's my own mind, or at least for the most part, or just facts that something happened that doesn't necessarily qualify as bullying, discrimination. But anyway, that's just to set the scene. So by August 24th, 2017, I've was really drained. I mean, extraordinarily drained. And here's a picture that was taken earlier in either late morning, early afternoon. I'll put a timestamp. And behind the smiles in most of my pictures in 2017, I'm really hiding back, or holding in. I'm really hiding inside, just despair, all these things and such. I'm just holding it in and such, and it literally felt like a 24/7, weight on my shoulders, basically. And hard to sleep, hard to maintain a circadian rhythm, up all night, sleeping all day, most of the day, here and there, and just pushing forward to my education, going to class, self-teaching myself before class started, making sure I'm prepared, and still facing these things every day and such. At the same time, I was trying to get my book published. I still had to go through the agent. I met the agent in 2016. Well, I mean virtually. I mean, he's all the way over in Pennsylvania. But he read my first draft to what became a trilogy, and then he told me that he wants me to start out with a more autobiographical piece, like an anthology, which is what I have published today. And then I could always come back and present something that's fictional. So 2017 was when I mostly did the anthology, and by July 17th, 2017, I was done and ready to have it shipped off to Pennsylvania. And then I got a little nervous. So I mean, that's just me, and I'm not really proud of myself in this regard, about how nervous I am. I don't want to create pressure on anybody, but it got toward the end of the week, July 22nd, which was my golden birthday. I turned 22 that day, and I'm just pressurized. I'm just feeling not myself. I'll put that mildly. And I emailed the agent, just wondering if he's just gotten it. I just wanted to know that if he's gotten it or not. So toward the end of the month, I think the 26th or so, he confirmed to me that he received the package, and long story short, basically give me about 3 to 4 weeks. Well, I think I misunderstood the 3 to 4 weeks. So throughout the rest of July, the remaining days, and all throughout August to this point, I thought that he was reading it. And I was, then the 18th happened, then the 19th happened, then the 21st happened, and again, you can watch those videos if you haven't already, how I was just harshly viewed at and treated and mistreated and such. And it just, weighed me down and such. So on the 24th of August, I couldn't stand it anymore. I believe I emailed him. Yeah, I emailed him on the 21st, of a few hours after those two boys, jumped to their conclusion and thought I was a monster over at the local Ralph's, or whatever it was they were thinking. I mean, you can't really mistake. I look over and they're just laughing and looking over at me and such. You can't mistake that. But you could watch that video and you could see how I turned the tables and I let them go in front of me in line, just to show I'm a nice person. I really care for everybody else, not me, but everybody else and such. But anyway, a few hours went by and I couldn't get that out of my head, so I probably contacted the agent, and I am not proud of just the fact that, I wasn't trying to rush him or anybody else. It's just I was just curious what the status was. So it got to the 22nd, it got to the 23rd, and now it's the 24th of August in the year 2017, and I about had it. So I literally, and no response. So it's the 24th, no response. He's fairly prompt, except for this time. And I made a Facebook post, and it was a long, lengthy Facebook post, very lengthy. And I just divulged everything, all my depression, all my despair, all my thoughts and everything, and just basically had, asked for, like a big call of prayer, And I got tons and tons of positive feedback. Hang in there, bud, and we're praying for you, and a couple of songs, YouTube, like praise, gospels, worship songs and such to listen to, and all my Facebook friends really helped me out on that, so I'm very thankful for that. But still, I was just nervous. I wanted to earn the status of being an author, and not just an author, but an author to help people, to really help people and explain my side of things and such. And basically, time went on, and later that evening, I was in a meeting, and we met at Coco's restaurant in Harbor Boulevard, Costa Mesa. We started meeting there like in 2016 instead of our regular place. I am trying hard to not divulge, but we'll see how it goes, exactly what the meeting is, what organization it was, but it's just us group of volunteers, because again, it's not the organization, and frankly it's not most of those other volunteers, and if I decide to say it, well, I'll say it, but just know that it's not the organization. But basically, I go there, I'm like either the first or second person there as usual, and I was probably there a little early anyway. And I started to talk to one of the other volunteers, I believe, if I remember accurately. And then another person comes in and he starts to, if I remember accurately, this part too, he started to interrupt and say some things that he wanted to talk to the other volunteer about. So it was kind of like a, us three having a little conversation. We get to the table, and one by one the other volunteers starts to come, including the head honcho, the person in charge of things, and he sat across from me, and the other two people that were there, one sat next to me and one sat diagonally across from me, and then the other people started to come and fill in the rest of the tables and such. And as the meeting went on, it got time for me to give my input in the meeting. Now let me give you a little bit of background. Okay, so I was not the head honcho, but I was not down here either. I was like in between. It's kind of a bit like St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church, where I ushered at. And I was an usher at first, then I became an assistant captain, and then a captain. But the head honcho is like the assistant usher chair or the usher chair and such. And I had a lot more responsibility. Likewise with this organization. And I had to come up with a calendar, and if you know me and autism, you know how detailed I am. I need all the dates, and I work days on this calendar, front and back on an 8.5 by 11 blank sheet of paper with charts and like little charts here and then a list there and such. Made sure that everything's detailed. Like in my side of things, I'm going to be here. The other volunteer is going to be there and such, and then I have to, I went into a lot of communications, or I went through a lot of communications through this, and I even emailed and communicated with the head honcho at least twice. The night before, I sent an email with my remaining questions that I had, and even that day, the day of, on the 24th, in the afternoon after hiking around the neighborhood, I believe it, yeah, right after I was hiking around the neighborhood, I called him just to get my final questions answered to the best of his knowledge. And so I finished it. I made all the copies, front and back. And then when I got there, one of the other volunteers weren't there. And he's hardly ever absent, but his son had like a wrestling thing at the local high school, or something was going on, and he couldn't make it, of all weeks, and that shattered me, that hammered me. I mean, that is like this entire night is falling apart, and it had to be this night because this was the last night before the upcoming academic year, September to June and such. And I'm like, no. I'm like, well, I mean, it's okay if he has to be somewhere, it's definitely okay. But of all nights, of all days, I needed him there so much that I can't even describe it right now, because he was heavily a part of helping finalize the schedule that I worked so hard on and everything, and I also needed kind of his approval. And I guess I thought with him there I might get a word in edgewise. Now, believe me, I usually get a word in edgewise, but I'm like usually the one who's almost always interrupted. I'm usually always cut off. That I hate to admit that. And it wasn't the first time, it wasn't the last time, or whatnot. But I usually always get cut off, and it really so nags me. And I just hold it in, and I've actually held it in from all of them, up until now. I mean, unless they for some reason watch this YouTube video and they know that I'm talking about this organization. That I hold to high respect. That's why I'm trying not to divulge it, because what I'm, mad at or upset at is the fact of what happened, not the organization, not the other volunteers or whatnot, but anyway. And so I usually get a word in edgewise, and I usually do, but sometimes I don't always. I usually get interrupted, and then one or a couple of them just tease me and such, not in a harsh way, but my autistic brain, I take it as harsh and such. And I also had the false notion that it's also because I'm the youngest one, or well, at the time I was the second youngest one, if I remember correctly. And notwithstanding that I was in this organization for a very long time, and I do know a lot about it, frankly a bit more than most of the other volunteers, not all of them, but like most of them. Sometimes, they may not listen entirely to me or something. I mean, I hate to put it that way, because people watching this might jump to conclusions. I mean, they're very supportive of me. They do hear me out almost 100% of the time. They do give me the leeway a lot. They do like some of my suggestions, or at least a couple of them do. And they've acted on my suggestions a lot. So but I'm just saying, sometimes when I'm serious about things, they interrupt, and they probably know that I'm serious about it, but they just interrupt and they just interrupt. They laugh, they tease, they ask the most out there questions that has nothing to do with what we're talking about and such. And it's only when I'm talking and such. Anyway, I gotta move on, because, again, nothing against the organization, nothing against most of the other volunteers. But what happened this night, I could remember two distinct things that really upset me and bothered me on this night. And it had to do with the person who came in. Now, I don't remember conclusively if that person came in and just interrupted me and the other or whatnot. We were probably just finished talking and he came and just jumped in the conversation. But he has done that in the past, at least once, where he just comes and interrupts. One time I was, again, talking to the head honcho, and I was like up all night. It was like very early in the morning, and it was still dark outside, and I was staying up all night, and I put down a lot of things that I felt inspired. I thought of a very good suggestion that would end all the problems in my side of things, and I had to get it passed by the head honcho, and I drew a diagram, I made notes, I did everything in cursive, and I doubt calligraphy, but I made copies, I did everything, and it took like a few weeks before I could actually sit down and talk to the head honcho, and by the way, he loved it, he liked it, he said, we'll implement it, well, not in those words, but he liked it, he liked my idea. But when I was talking to him, and it's like I'm very nervous because I believe in this idea, I mean, I'll say this, I don't believe every single thing I think should be implemented. Even if I believe it's right, it's always good if we have constructive criticism, some feedback, and combine ideas. I just want to throw that out there. But I really believed in this suggestion, and I just thank God that he went along with it. But I still wanted to present it where he gives me a word in edgewise, which he did, and I wanted to present it in a way where, there's no interruptions, and because I was worried that if I sound the wrong way, if that makes sense, if I sound the wrong way, then they might cut me off and say it's not going to work when you haven't even heard it and such. You gotta let me finish first. And so I was, concerned about, presenting it. And while I was doing so, here comes this other leader, and he comes in and he starts talking and talking, and then he pauses and says, "Are you guys in a meeting?" And the funniest thing is that both the head honcho and I both tell him yes. I mean, not in a mean or forceful way, but he understood and left. But I'm just saying that happened. I think that was probably May 2017. But again, fast forward to August, he was sitting diagonally across from me. Now, sometime right after the meeting started, I will say this briefly, is that the person sitting next to me, the person whom I was talking to when I first arrived, or right after I first arrived, and that's when he showed up, whatever the case is, he all of a sudden was looking at his phone, and he said, "Oh no." Instantly, I knew what happened. Okay, instantly, I figured out what happened just by the tone of his voice, but nobody else seemed to have cared to listen. And I just gave him time, I gave him a second, and finally he said that one of his friends just died. And I knew it just by how he said, "Oh no." And I'm it's like I always want to say the right thing, and I was tongue-tied, and I'm still kicking myself over this, I guess, in the back of my mind. But, he packed up his stuff and was about to leave, and the guy sitting next to him, all he said, while probably looking down, was, "Sorry about your friend," or something like that. Now, he was very sincere, but I was like, that's it? And that forceful of a tone, of a voice, I know that's how he talks, but I don't know. I mean, when a person, I know how it feels, and it's like, and now you're probably wondering, well, why didn't I speak up? Well, that's why I said what I said a few seconds ago. It's like, I don't want to say the wrong thing and such, and it happened just like that. And if you have autism, and you could be well prepared of something, but then when it actually comes, you choke, pretty much. But anyway, he left, and I just hope and pray that everything went well. It was 3 years ago, and of course everything past and such. But anyway, as the meeting continued, now it came time for me to be up. So I did, and I was about to present the calendar that I worked so hard on, that I worked days on, that I put in like almost small print with some charts and such, front and back, and I was so choked and nervous because the other who hardly ever misses a meeting wasn't there. Of course, I am totally understanding that his son had a high school thing going on, or a wrestling thing, or a match or something. I totally understand that, but of all nights, and it really ripped me to shreds, and such. But anyway, it's like, okay, I'm on my own now. I could do it on my own, but I wanted him there, maybe also because if any of the other leaders started to talk over me, he might possibly had spoken up and got me to continue to have a word in edgewise, if you know what I mean. I don't know. I mean, this was 3 years ago, and sometimes in my mind I may not even make sense in my own mind, but I just thought I'd throw that out there. It's not that I can't handle it, or that I can't speak up for myself or advocate for myself. It's just a bit harder for me because I have autism and such, but I'm really pushing forward. And because of this organization that I volunteer with, it really helped build confidence and helped me advocate for myself. So there's a lot of pluses to this organization. I'm just upset at the fact of what happened on this night, which I'm just so close to getting to. And so I pull out the calendar, and I'm like, I was going to present it, but the other kid wasn't there, and everything was falling apart before my eyes, and I'm like, here you go. And I just handed it to him, and the head honcho, he put on this smirk, and it was like, are you serious? Do you want to go through everything right now? And I'm like, yes. And I was like fed up in my mind, but I mean, I wasn't mean or anything like that. I wasn't like mean like that or something, but I was just, I worked so hard, and I'm very devoted to this, and I just wanted to present it, and he just couldn't believe it. He thought I was joking or something. I mean, I believe that he believes that I was serious about it. I was all into it, but I think he was taken off guard when he believed that I wanted to go through the entire thing. And again, in order to make that complete, this other leader had to be there, and this was the last meeting before things start and kick off for the academic year. And this meeting was already falling apart before me. So obviously we didn't go through everything and such, and I forget what happened. I literally forget what happened afterward. But something else I remember now, I forget if this was before, after, just before, or just after. But it deals with that man who sat across from me, the one who interrupted us at least once over time. And I was preparing to say something because I'm all into this organization that I volunteer with, and basically I knew what we were going to talk about, and we were talking about having the people in the organization sort of show respect to certain things, which is part of what the organization's there for. And I don't care. It was Royal Rangers. This was a Royal Rangers meeting. Here are all the commanders that I was talking about. The head honcho is the senior commander, and this is what happened. Again, nothing against Royal Rangers at all. There is nothing. I mean, why am I nervous? There is nothing against them speaking against Royal Rangers or even most of the commanders in my outpost. The fact is that sometimes in these meetings I'm usually silent, and I'm usually always the target of jokes. I mean, I know they don't try to be mean, but there have been a lot of mean times, a lot more than you and them know, and such. Just a lot of things. And this was not bullying, this was not discriminating, but I'm the easy target of being given a hard time with, And a couple of them even admit that. It's like, oh, I'm just giving you a hard time. Now, people like the senior commander, now I like never get offended from him by whatsoever. Like when he jokes, I know it. When other people joke, I know it 90%, I know it 50%, some I know 5% when they're, just joking and such. But anyway, I'm in a commander's meeting, and yeah, this was the worst commander's meeting in my life, and I haven't even got to the bulk of it yet, like what ultimately happened that night. And as the meeting went on, it got time to talk about the next academic year, and Royal Rangers really helps a young man from K through 12 be leaders in their community and in their country. We pay attention and salute the flag, and we honor it, as well as the Christian flag and the Royal Rangers flag, and it's basically like Boy Scouts, if you're more familiar with Boy Scouts of America. And it's kind of a bit like that. And I was extremely wanting them to really show respect to the flag like I do, and such. I'm not saying that they don't. I'm not saying that a lot of them don't, but a couple of the boys sometimes, especially toward the end of the year, kind of it takes things lightly and such. And I knew that it was going to be brought out like this, so I had an analogy. And just like I was talking about autism earlier, whenever something is about to happen and I could be an expert at it, when it is actually in front of me in my face, I choke and such. And I didn't want that to happen. I even rehearsed what I was going to say, and I still choked a little bit. And I felt that if I choke a little bit, then they're not going to take me seriously and such, when I'm really concerned over this matter. This is part of Royal Rangers, is to show respect to the flag and everything, among a lot of other things as well. And I wanted to do the drill commands, which I'll get to a little later. I started the drill commands. I mentioned this in my book. I started the drill commands with the Ranger kids in spring of 2015, and in fall of 2015 I became a Discovery Rangers commander, and I wanted to teach them the drill commands, but the senior commanders wanted to do the stick with the patrols, or I mean not stick with, but start the patrols and then work our way to the drill commands. So for 2015-16 and 2016-17, we've been working on developing patrols. Okay, it's now August 2017. The patrol system was fairly working. Now I just wanted to take it up a step higher and such. And while we were sort of discussing this, and it was really in my heart, because I've been in Royal Rangers at this point for like 17 years, and what I was trying to say earlier, without saying what organization it was in which I foundered, obviously I said I had to say what organization it was, because it will help make this story make a lot more sense of what happened. Is that the perplexing thing is yes, at this time I was one of the youngest, but I earned the Gold Medal of Achievement, and so I because of Royal Rangers, and I give all thanks to Royal Rangers and all praise to God. Because of that, it's given me confidence, it's given me leadership, it's given me knowledge, it's given me wisdom, and so I have that, and I know I had that in the background. And the other commanders, most of them were either not in Royal Rangers, they were Boy Scouts when they were a kid, or they were in Royal Rangers probably back in the 80s, give or take a decade, and then just, dropped out. I mean, not saying that in a bad way, but just, they probably had other obligations to do. I, on the other hand, started when I was 5, went all the way up, and earned the Gold Medal of Achievement. At this time, I was, the only commander there who has earned the Gold Medal of Achievement. And, it just perplexed me that, sometimes I'm cut off, not given a word, and edgewise, and just having the feeling that I'm not taken seriously. And the only one that was sort of picked on, not in like a mean bullying way, but that's how my mind took it. But I was picked on, given a hard time, teased, but at their defense, teasing in a friendly way, in which I prefer the word joking. but my autistic brain takes it as a tease. But anyway, I could probably do a video or several videos explaining that, and how my mind interprets it. Maybe that might be an encouraging video. It would be a way for me to release what I'm holding in, what I've held in for years and years and years, but also maybe to encourage other people. Listen, if you're using that language around us, you may be teasing, or well, I meant joking, but we take it as bullying, criticism, and such. I mean, not all of us. I mean, autism is a spectrum, so not all of us are like that, or at least to some extent. But I'm just saying again, nothing against the program, nothing against, frankly, any of the commanders, really, nothing against them. It's just some commanders teased a little bit, well, joked around, giving me a hard time more than others. A couple of them I highly know when they're teasing, and a couple of them I don't. And I just felt like if I told them, hey, really, you're really hurting me, then they either might not believe it, or think I'm somebody that I'm not, or they might use that to tease me more, which, what are the chances of the last one? Probably, or possibly. But I'm just saying anyway, that's not really what the point of this video is. The point is that, I was very adamant about a lot of things, not including the schedule, but also about, wanting boys to respect, like 3rd to 5th grade boys. I'm not saying that they didn't. I'm not saying that, or at least most of them. But I really wanted them to, respect, and in order to respect, we've got to, revive the drill commands and such, like attention, dress right dress, ready front, parade rest, and all that. I mean, not in a drill sergeant or a military camp way, but like in a loving, firm Royal Rangers or Boy Scouts of America way, and such. I mean, not like what the military does, not like what boot camp does or whatnot, but just do it for boys their age, pretty much. And that's what Royal Rangers is partly founded on, on that, as well as Boy Scouts of America. And I came up with an analogy that I wish not to repeat right now, but it basically gets the point of how adamant I am and how sincere I am to wanting people to respect our country and the flag and the Bible and basically church and country. And I even mentioned that in my book about how I would consider myself highly patriotic and such. I know a lot of the flag code and such. And when I was going to high school, Newport Harbor High School, a lot of people groaned when they had to pledge allegiance to the flag. They had to stand up and they had to put their right hand over their heart and repeat the flag. And a lot of people groaned in my classes. And I tell a story that I don't have time right now because I get frustrated all over again, but you could read my book. I believe it's either Conserving a Picturesque Heirloom chapter. I think it's that one actually. But it basically explains what happened and the horror that I witnessed and such. But Royal Rangers really teaches you to honor your country, God, church, family, and teachers, leaders, those in authority and such, and to be obedient and remain loyal and faithful. And there was one time, now this wasn't Royal Rangers, but this was when I was volunteering for the 5th to 8th graders, and it was the Sunday near the 4th of July, either 2016 or 2017, and I was volunteering with them, which that's a long story about how I about my outlook of what my experience was like volunteering for the 5th to 8th graders, even though I mention it in my book. But there was one day and a person had 2 flags and was riding a scooter in circles and such, and I'm like, wow, you really pay tribute to our country because it's the 4th of July, and he has like like a couple of little flags, and I think he might have had some paint on his, like USA paint or something on his face. And then when it came time to the devotion, I noticed because I was standing in the back, I noticed that he was allowing the little flags to touch the ground, and I was, not surprised, but almost appalled too, and I just didn't know what to do at that moment. But then the person sitting next to him, who was a former Royal Ranger, he looks and nudges at him and says, "Hey, those can't touch the ground." And you know what? I was surprised. He whispered, "Hey, you can't have those touch the ground," and such. And I was actually surprised that he, of all people, actually, decided to, respect the flag that day and such, considering of how I saw him previously in Royal Rangers and such. I'm like, wow. But then the boy, whom I thought was very patriotic, looked at him, took the flags, and trashed them on the ground. And I about had a heart attack. Anyway, moving on back to August 24th, 2017, I was very, adamant about preserving that, because otherwise stuff like that would always happen, where people just allow the flag to be thrown to the ground and such. And I was very adamant that I actually don't care. I will say this. This was my analogy. I would rather, pound my fist on glass, and it would hurt a whole lot less than when seeing a person trash our flag and such. I would rather do that. I would pound on glass until it breaks, cut me up and such, my fists and all that. And, it would hurt a lot less than, seeing one person even mistreat the flag and such. So that's what I was saying, but I was probably spitting and sputtering, whatever the expression is. Actually, I think I did it fairly good, not really stuttering, but fairly good. But as I was trying to catch the words, because I rehearsed this, because I knew it was going to be talked about, and I knew I was probably going to have to use that that analogy that I came up with, a truthful analogy, and I was trying to catch the words, but they probably thought I was a robot or something, or not all of them, maybe just that one sitting diagonally across from me, because he immediately interrupted and said, "Wouldn't it be nice to have, like a 4 or 5-star general come in and such?" And he started to throw out his idea, and the conversation continued for a few more seconds, and he said something, and it's like, that's what I'm saying. That's what I could do. I could do that. And this is very important. One of the few most important things in this video is this right here. He looked at me in the eye, and he said, "No, you can't." That's what he said. He just said, "No, you can't." And I was never taken back more in my life. I mean, did he know that I was actually the one that began the drill commands? Even for his son, like his son was in kindergarten in the spring of 2015, I believe. And I was teaching his son and all the other ranger kids the drill commands, and they got it down perfectly. And did he not know that? Because he became a commander like a year and a half-ish, give or take, later. In 2016 is when he became the commander. So he became a commander in 2016, and he had prior experience in Royal Rangers back in like the 80s sometime, but then left. But when he became a commander, he got involved in the basic drill commands that was rolled over after I went to Discovery Rangers, and they kept drill commands like attention, especially, and dress right dress, and all that, and he was using that as well. And I was wondering, did you not know that I was the one that actually started on it, and I've been asking for the last 2 years to teach the drill commands to the Discovery Rangers and do all that? Now, it wasn't really so much the drill commands, but that was a huge part of it, and he just looked at me and said, "No, you can't." Now, the things that were going in my mind that I was thinking out loud just to you right now, I didn't actually say. I was just appalled and taken off guard. It's like, yes, I can. You're a Royal Ranger commander. You never tell anybody, "No, you can't," especially when you don't know yourself and such. And I'm not saying that in a mean way or so. I'm just saying that in a truthful, loving Christian way and such. But, I just couldn't bear to say that at that moment. So the meeting is literally, a volcano. It's literally a nightmare, I'm not joking. Everything was falling apart, now this, now that. That other commander wasn't there. I couldn't finalize the calendar that I made. We couldn't even go over most of it that I made and such. And, you know, as time went on, you know, everything just became so heated. I literally stood up and I excused myself. I had to leave. And I didn't know what I was doing, where I was going. I literally, you know, I walked out that door. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I didn't know what to do. I just needed some fresh air. They probably thought I just stepped out to use the restroom or something. But no, I went outside Coco's and I just walked. And I walked and I walked and I walked. And I kid you not, I don't know. I just felt all the weight of the world on my shoulders. It was nighttime. It was dark out. And I just felt the weight of my shoulders. It was as if I was out of my body, if that makes sense. It's as if I was out of my body and I wasn't really walking, but somebody inside me or something was walking for me, and I didn't know where I was going. I just walked, and all I knew is I just had to get some fresh air, and I booked it. And I literally walked from Coco's and Harbor Boulevard all the way, no joke, to the middle of Orange Coast College campus. And to prove it, I took this photo. I snapped this photo right here, and I snapped it. I took out my phone and did that because I thought, well, what if the small chance they might ask me where I was either when I came back or the day after or a month after. And I said, listen, I just had to walk out, and I went all the way to OCC, and they're like, oh yeah, right. I now have proof, and I kept it on my phone so I could show them the timestamp as well, under information and all that and such. I mean, I don't know. I was, you know, a mess literally in August 2017. You gotta understand that the 21st, what happened on the 21st happened, on the 18th and the 19th happened. If you're curious of how I was bullied and discriminated, it's in this, or I provided it probably sometime in this video on the card above, or the cards above. And also what happened on July 16th, and also all the other dates in between and before and after that I never even, you know, made a YouTube video for, all the things that I've been hiding in. And at the same time, earlier that day on August 24th, I made that long Facebook post, and after I made that long Facebook post, it still, you know, it wasn't the complete closure at the time, and I was still waiting since the 21st to just get a little status update on, you know, how my book is doing from the publisher and such. And so, you know, I've been holding most of this in for 3 years. In 2018, I did have to confess to my grandpa briefly, my grandfather, how, you know, I walked out on that night. I didn't just step out for fresh air, I walked out, and I continued to walk, but I didn't really tell him that much details or so. And, you know, I could already start to feel a little relieved that I'm finally getting this out. A little relief. Just stay tuned for the assessment afterward. Anyway, as time went on of the night, I found myself at OCC by like the triplet buildings and the geology building and just past the chemistry building and such. And, you know, I was going to start there for my new semester, I think my 12th official semester, later that day, or that, no, not the day, but like the next week or so. And, you know, I was just, you know, like a mess. I felt all the all the weight of the world, of the universe, on my shoulders and in me. And I was like, why, Matthew? Why are you pushing yourself so hard? Why are you going to school? Why are you pushing yourself, you know, getting a degree in chemistry and majoring in biochemistry? Why are you doing this if, you know, everywhere you go, you're just not going to be listened to? You're just going to be bullied and discriminated, laughed at, yelled at, rebuked at, and such. Why? And, you know, that's what my mind was thinking. And, you know, of course, I didn't allow it to win, obviously. And it's basically the simple, you know, question, why push myself if I'm just going to be treated like this, usually by my mind or people out in the community or people out in school and such. And again, I'm not really pointing the finger at any of the commanders necessarily, or at least most of them or so, whatsoever. Again, this isn't a bullying and discriminating video. This video I'm titling, as of now, the worst meeting of my life and such. But anyway, I just kept on walking, and then I got to like the middle of campus. Well, not the middle, but you know, somewhere on campus. I knew where I was, and I just stopped, and then I'm like, holy cow. And I look at my phone, and I think that's when I found out I got a text that my grandfather's on his way to pick me up and all that, at Coco's. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to get like home before then. Whatever happened, I found out that my grandpa was on his way. I needed to get, not home, but I needed to get back to Coco's restaurant before he comes and then sees me outside, and then he's going to ask a million questions of why I was doing outside, or what I was doing outside and such. And so I brisk walk all the way back, and I come all the way back. I brisk walk, and I turn the corner, and there's my grandfather right there. He got, like, he just parked there, and he got out of the truck for some reason, probably to stretch his legs, I don't know, and he was just there, and I'm like, holy cow. And I'm like brisk walking, trying to make it to the door, keeping my eye on him, and the last second he turns over and he smirks at me, and was like, what are you doing here? And we just waved and such, and I'm like, busted. So I go in, and I go back, and I sit back down where I was sitting at the table in the meeting. Was I missed? No. They didn't ask me where I was. They didn't say anything. They didn't do anything and such. I'm not saying that most of them are uncaring. I'm not saying that whatsoever. I don't know. I just will never forget that. And so as time went on, you know, a few moments later, I started to feel heated again. I forget exactly what happened, or if something did happen, or if something was said. And I just didn't feel like myself. It's like everything happening all over again. I was getting pressured. I was getting tensed. I felt, you know, nobody cares about me, which is untrue, and I knew that, but I just felt that and such, and I was, you know, mistaking that for in front of my real friends that I do have. But, you know, this was just a horrible meeting. I mean, and also, you know, the fact of what happened, like, the senior commander is very supportive. He really let me have the, he really had given me the leeway over the years before and after this and such. But, you know, when he, you know, was taken off guard of my big schedule that he asked for, and then he smirked and was like, are you serious? That almost did it for me. But it really wasn't him. It was really that commander across from me, especially interrupting all the time and saying, no, you can't. And also the same night, you know, the other commander, not this one who left because his friend died, but the one sitting next to here, he is really the teaser. And he's, you know, very all-loving doing it, but, you know, I always misinterpret it, and he interrupts me all the time and doesn't give me a word in edgewise, and it's like whenever I speak, he interrupts me, and such, and it's very disconcerting to me. It's like as if I'm don't exist almost. It's as if I don't exist and such, or don't have authority like I do, or the leadership training that I do have, or even what I earn, which is the Gold Medal of Achievement, which is equivalent to the Eagle Scout. Now he knows that, believe me, he knows that. He is one of my best friends and major supporters, and he knows that. But, you know, it just takes me off guard when you know, he always interrupts at the most inopportune times and such, always. But, you know, anyway, I could do a whole video and such, and, you know, I've just been holding it all in for years. It's just that I don't have the heart to tell him, and that's very unhealthy. And so this is one of my many encouragements to you. If you have autism or anything similar to what I'm describing, please just let it out. Talk to the person and say something. Just like literally muster up the courage and such, and just speak things out and such, because I know that there is nothing on this earth that would make him hurt me or anything like that, or anybody else whatsoever. He's, again, one of my best friends and such. It's just that he just interrupts at some of the most inopportune times and such. And, you know, and it's usually when I'm making a point and such, and I'm making a point, and then he interrupts and asks such an irrelevant question that doesn't pertain to anything what we're talking about, and I'm trying to make a point from my heart, and then they're going to forget about it, and they're going to move on, and then not take my suggestion. I mean, it's a suggestion, not like a command or anything. I'm suggesting something, and I want it to be, dynamic and such. So that's pretty much, that part of the story. But, everything was going on at the same time, and they were, by the time I got back, I think they were scheduling things like a toolcraft merit day and such, and such. I don't know. I forget exactly what happened, but something happened. I just had to leave. I literally walked out twice, but the last time I walked out was the last time. I grabbed my bags, and I'm like, I literally did not feel like 𝐬𝐻𝐿𝐵𝐾. I did not feel like myself and such. And I got the senior commander's attention, and I said, you know what? I have to leave. I don't feel like myself right now. And I booked it. Well, when I say book it, I mean I didn't like run or anything, but I took my heavy bag because I'm like the only one that always carries at least one heavy bag everywhere, because I'm a Royal Ranger, and I really care as much as the senior commander cares, and such. Like a lot of the commanders, they care, but I really care that I always bring a heavy tote bag filled with stuff, from survival equipment to papers to merit sheets and all that, just in case it's called upon for some reason. I could always pull it out and give a status report, and I also bring it every time to Royal Rangers, just in case a boy's wondering, so what else do I need, or for this merit, like what other requirements do I need, or what do you need to do to get the dog care merit and such. And I have everything right there. I have the leadership manual, I have extra rope to show them how to tie knots, I have bigger rope to practice coiling. I bring like everything. And is it used? Like 1% of the time or less and such, but I still bring it anyway and such. So anyway, I'm like literally holding a huge bag, and I'm just storming out of there. And as I done so, right as soon as I said I'm not feeling myself right now, or like myself right now, and I left, and I just left them all perplexed and all that. And the senior commander, he yelled back at me and said, "What?" And I heard it, but I just I'm not going to answer that. I don't even know how to answer that. And I was just upset and frustrated over the whole entire thing, and I just left. And now, busted, well, I'm about to be confronted. I go to my grandfather, and I put on a smile and such, and try to be optimistic and everything. I said hello and everything. Let's get in the truck. Let's leave before he asks any questions and such. I'm like, okay, let's go. And he said something. He probably asked how the night went. He always does that. And I was like, no, why did he have to ask? And so I answered like, yeah, it went okay. Technically, not necessarily too far from the truth. I mean, technically, some parts went good. Okay, so we just left, and I was just feeling so pitiful inside. I just felt so weak inside, and I wasn't hungry. I'll put it mildly like that. And I just wanted to get home as soon as possible, and just feel pitiful and all that. And I remember looking outside the window, and I see where we were sitting at. So technically anybody, especially my grandfather, could pull up and just watch us conclude the meeting if he wanted to, or conduct the meeting. And I noticed that the person that sat 2 seats from me, not the one next to me, but the one before that, he was like, I believe, even in retrospect, I believe he was looking outside. He was seeing us pull out. And he kind of had a concerned face, but it may have been a coincidence, or he might have been concerned just seeing us pull out. And I was going, we were going back home, and of course I'm hammered with guilt. I know what you're probably thinking. There's probably nothing I should feel guilty about. I was a little guilty that I walked out, but under the circumstances, did I do the right thing? You tell me. But anyway, in the comments below. But anyway, so I continue, and I pull out my phone, and I text. I believe I texted 3 people. I believe I texted the senior commander, and that other commander who is now the senior commander today, who sat next to me, that always interrupts at the most inopportune time, the one that was staring outside the window. and such with the concerned countenance. And I texted them both, I believe, and I said to them, I really apologize for walking out. I really do not feel like myself today. Recently. I did write a big Facebook page. I'm not sure if you've seen it, not a Facebook page, but a Facebook post. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but it's on Facebook. And please don't contact my mother or my grandfather about this. I could handle it all and such. And they're like, okay, and at least one of them, I don't think he's seen my Facebook post yet, and I noticed later on, either later that night or the next day, that he saw it and commented saying that he's praying and all that. But then I texted the commander who didn't show up, and I said, hey, I don't know how to say this, but I had to walk out twice today, and just explain to him what's been going on and everything, briefly. And let me tell you a real quick side story of what happened earlier that month. It was August 13th, 2017, Sunday. And it was this big 𝐾𝐨𝐧'𝐭 day where Newport Mesa Church honored, the firefighters, the police department, our local politicians, I guess, like City Hall and such, and lifeguards. And it was a big, day, and a lot of people were out. They had their tents and everything. Well, I mean, like canopies. And it was like a big, day to honor the people working for our city and such. But toward the end, I was, so out of it, and I was so debating. I wanted prayer, and I went up to those commanders. I went up to the commander who didn't show up. I went up to the senior commander. I went up to the person that always interrupts at the most inopportune times, who's a very good friend, by the way. And those are the three people that I actually texted on this night on the 24th. But back on the 13th, I talked to the commander first, who didn't show up on the 24th. And I talked to him first, and he knew that I was nervous. He saw it, and it was like, what's going on? And I tell him I'm working on this project. Hardly anybody knew I was writing a book, and that's for, personal reasons I don't know how to describe right now. I just wanted to surprise everybody. I don't know why, but I still hold true to that, but I still don't know how to explain it. But I just wanted it to be a surprise from literally everybody. And I talked to him that I'm just working on this huge project, and it's really driving me crazy and such. And he had the other two commanders huddle, and so us four huddled and them three prayed. And so on this night, on the 24th, I texted all of them, and with all apologetic and everything and such, because I felt guilty, even though under the circumstances. But I just went home, and the commander who didn't show up, he gave me like a gospel hymn or song, like he messaged me either that night or the next day, and it was like In the Hands of the Snow White Dove or something like that. It was a beautiful, peaceful song. But then there's one more thing that I've got to unload, because it's been with me almost 3 years, is that I did confide in another commander. And this other commander, he's also, a prayer warrior. I believe he's on the prayer team, at least the usher team and such. And, I just confided in him and trusted. I still didn't tell him exactly what it was. I'll go ahead and tell you that he figured it out later on about, that I've written a book. He sort of figured it out. But anyway, but back in August 2017, it's like we were communicating on Facebook, and back in the day, we would communicate on Facebook Messenger a lot, and I sort of thought maybe I could just reach out to him. Now he's also kind of a bit like that commander who interrupts at the most inopportune times, that teases and probably doesn't mean to hurt, but he does and such and such. Well, I mean, to my autism, that is. This one's the same way, only I think he's a bit more serious sometimes, and really really talking to me thoroughly in a hurtful way, if I could just be honest. I'm trying not to make it sound bad or anything like that. Really, it's not. But there's some things that he says. I mean, I don't think he fully grasps autism, but at the same time, he's extremely supportive some percentage of the time. I mean, sometimes he's or most of the time he's as nice as pie, but other times, yeah. So anyway, I decided to ask him like guidance, I guess, prayer and such. I'm still, facing these things, and I, don't know how to best communicate with him sometimes, like Messenger, Facebook, email or whatnot. And since I'm part of the email chain for Royal Rangers, I basically have access to all the emails. And I think this person had a couple of different emails, and it's like, I don't know which one. And I'm at the most despair of my life. And I, sent out, a couple of emails. He reached out to me on Messenger. And yeah, he said a couple of supportive things. But one day, right shortly after this horrible time of my life, it was August 28th, 2017, and then he messaged me on Messenger and says, "Hey Matthew, please don't email me at my work. It's inappropriate. That's inappropriate. Have a good one." And I'm like, what the heck? I mean, I'm at the lowest part of my life. Don't you recognize that? I mean, you're a nurse. Don't you recognize the signs and symptoms and all that? Or more like the signs and such. I'm at the lowest part of my life. I'm at uttermost despair, and you call me inappropriate, or no, you don't call me inappropriate, but you call what I did inappropriate just because I didn't know the best way to contact you and such. It was very worse for me to hear at that time, if you know what I mean. I mean, this is a person that later called me immature. Well, technically he called me immature and a lot of other things. And it's like I'm not and such. It's like I want to help other people, and I thought I could trust you. And I could. I mean, he said, "Have a good one, sir." I mean, you saw that. I gave you a screenshot. He said, "Have a good one, sir." And right before that, like a couple of days before that, we were communicating, and he was giving me encouragement, like, surrender it to God. I mean, you'll feel better. Just surrender everything to God. He said that if you're still anxious about it, then you haven't really fully surrendered it to God. Now, have you? And I'm like, oh, good point and such. So I'm not saying that he's a very mean individual. I'm not saying that at all. But he is probably the most firmest of, stern of all the commanders outside of the one that told me, "No, you can't." I just went to bed that night on the 24th, and I woke up on the 25th, and I kid you not, let me give a brief background of this. When I was in middle school, I would watch, and I described this in my book, I would watch, a brand new show, and this happened a couple of times. And it was like a brand new show I never watched before, and of course there was friendship and everything, things that I didn't feel like I truly had. I mean, I had friends, but not, that type of friendship and all that. And I woke up with this odd sensation of, forlorn. Now, just look up the word forlorn to get a better definition, but it's basically, feeling lonely with a sense of abandonment and such. And I just had this awful forlorn feeling so queasy, so bad inside, feeling so lonely and everything, and I just can't explain it. Well, I woke up on the morning of the 25th of August, or sometime in the 25th of August 2017, and I kid you not, I felt so hammered. I was lying face up, and it wasn't like the weight of the world on my shoulders. It was like my entire body. I was just feeling like hammered and such. My entire body, I just felt so deprived of energy and optimism and just the push and the will to go forward, to move forward. Didn't want to get out of bed and whatnot. And I kid you not, the very first thing, and this is always what happens after you first wake up, the very first thing I thought of, again, I don't have a photographic memory, but it was almost close enough. I thought of the very first thing that popped up into my mind was this face, this familiar face, looking at me in the eye and saying, "No, you can't." And I even felt horrible, more horrible than I've already felt. I was already feeling horrible and queasy when I woke up, and now I even feel, crushing pain. It's like, will this ever end? And I didn't actually think it will. I mean, I forced myself to remain optimistic. I mean, my agent, it's almost 3 to 4 weeks. He's probably almost done with reading it. So I get up, and I open my email, I open Gmail, and I kid you not, that morning, my agent of all mornings finally emailed me back. And I was so jubilant, I opened it, and it was short-lived. He said, "Matthew, I'm planning on getting into it on Monday." And I'm like, I had to read it a few times, and then I looked up at my mother, who came in, and she's one of my biggest supporters, and I told her I got an email back from my agent, and she's like, "Oh, all right," because she was concerned when I had to give that big lengthy Facebook post, and said she was concerned about me probably for a while, and she said all right, and I'm like, "Mom, no, he said that he was going to get into it and start it on Monday. He hasn't even started it this entire time, this entire horrible month of August. He's never even started it." And and my mom's like, "Well, that's still, he's still going to start it and all that," and she's trying to encourage me and such. And I'm like, "Okay, I estimate maybe 3 or 4 weeks and all that." And and then the next Wednesday, it wasn't Monday, but it was the next Wednesday when I got another email from him saying, "Hey Matthew, just to let you know, I'm starting your book and such, starting to go over it." And I'm like, yes. I remained optimistic. I began my semester. I was a little hesitant of going to my 12th official semester. I mean, I had a burnout that spring. I returned in summer. Now this is my first 16-week semester back, the fall of 2017. I was taking physics lab, which I had to drop because of the professor for, it's a long story. I mean, a lot of us, and I overheard things too, a lot of us, couldn't understand the professor a lot, and it was really getting very hard to understand. And I was also taking Calculus 1, which, I passed with flying colors, pretty much. I loved Calculus 1, and I was also taking public speaking as well, which was pretty interesting. And I was just remaining optimistic the entire time. And finally, it was October 2nd, 2017, and I got an email back from my agent, and he said he finished it, but it's more of an autobiographical piece. So I would recommend you cutting it down a lot to this many pages. And so I spent the next month and a half doing so, and I couldn't get, all the way down, but he said, "Okay, don't worry about it." And then by mid-November 2017, he submitted it, and the rest is almost history. Like probably February 2018, I believe I got an email saying that there's a publisher interested in my book. On March 2nd, 2018, I got the contract for Axiom Press officially, and the rest is, well, almost history. And then I could do like an entire video from 2018 to mid-2019 alone, and how horrible that was. But I remain optimistic, and here I am today, pretty much. Well, I mean, there's a lot of bumps in the roads that is beyond the scope of this video and such. But anyway, so that's pretty much the story. What happened on the 24th influenced the events of the 25th and the 26th and thereafter. On the 25th, I decided to, do my usual tradition and just go on a hike. My mother took a photo of me. Here is the photo. And, just like I said, you could see the wear behind my smile. I try to hide it, but it's even more wear and despair than the day before and such. I mean, I was just feeling so queasy inside, so awful inside. But, I just went out and just took a cathartic hike, tried to release some emotions, some feelings, and all that, and just thought and thought and thought and everything. Well, anyway, the reason why I decided to come forward with such a video, I know it's very lengthy, over an hour, but the reason why I decided to push through and do so is because this really would help lead up to how I began to start this YouTube channel to begin with, along with the other previous YouTube videos that I was making, which is actually 3 years ago tomorrow, officially, which I do plan to make another video on the 3rd year anniversary of becoming, well, a YouTuber, and how how much confidence that's given me and everything to use such a platform as this to share with the world and all that. Well, just to, I guess briefly, put everything together and wrap up, that commander, it was planned that that commander was going to stay with ranger kids and such, and that I was going to work with the commander who was probably the youngest. He was a couple of years younger than me, and he was from, I believe Northern California, and he came down here, and I was working with him for the past, or volunteering with him for maybe a year or two, and I was expecting to work with him and such all this time, and that's how it was, on August 24th. That was the plan. I was going to volunteer with him, and the commander across from me, the one who said, no, you can't, was going to go, stick with the ranger kids. And like a few days before September 20th, 2017, when we came back together for the next academic year, a few days before, like almost right at the last minute, I get an email from the senior commander and said that the person that I was volunteering with and was going to volunteer with has moved to Ranger Kids, and that the commander who sat diagonal for me was moving from Ranger Kids to Discovery Rangers, where I was volunteering with. And you could just imagine it was a whirlwind, tornado, hurricane, cyclone, volcano, all at the same time when I saw that news. And I in retrospect, I guess I feel a little guilty for thinking that, but under the circumstances, and he really gave me the impression that he didn't like me, he didn't understand me, he didn't think I could do anything, and such. You gotta understand, and the hurt that he has caused me and such. And I'm like, I don't think this is going to work, but you know what, we'll make it work. We'll talk things out. And the commander said, we're going to talk together. The three of us, senior commander, him, and I, were going to talk together right before. So like a couple of days went by, and we talked with each other at a Starbucks on Harbor Boulevard by the McDonald's over there in Kmart. And we talked, and we had like a big lengthy conversation, and I smiled and I said, welcome to Discovery Rangers. And he smiled back, and we just started to build a relationship. No matter what, we're going to build a relationship there. And so so we three talked, and I wasn't too satisfied, but at the same time, we'll make this work. And by September 2017, I mean, the patrol system was already down. Now it's time to really get into the drill commands for the Discovery Rangers and such. And I was, getting excited, and then I heard the news, and I thought, this guy's probably not even going to let me teach the drill commands, and I'm not sure if he knows all the drill commands, especially adequately, like how you exactly do it. Like attention is heels together, feet at 45 degrees angle, and all that. I mean, I could do, explain all of that, but, and the boys, they get it very well. And I remember it was September 20th, 2017, and I had an entire outline ready, and I built, part of the outline came from the senior commander. The senior commander emailed me and said, first night topics, please explain this, that, this, that. And I did so, and then I added, of course, some of the, housekeeping rules and such, how the year's going to be and run and all that. And, we sort of had a good talk beforehand, but I was just a little concerned. What if he would usurp the meeting and not let me say anything, even the things that I have to say from the senior commander or whatnot? What if this, what if that? And I remember feeling, so bad and queasy all the ride over. I mean, I'm serious here. And of all years, that's when they started to have, like a big meeting where all the families and all the boys and the girls for the other programs, or the other program, where we all meet at. And they started to have an introductory night, and I'm like, we've never done this. I've been here since 2000. That's never happened before, and such. Even when I was 5 and 6 years old, and I was that's just going to take another half hour or more. But it happened, and we went through it. And then that commander who sat diagonal from me and I came downstairs and got set up and everything. and then pretty soon the boys started to come downstairs and everything, and we started to begin. Well, anyway, I remember sometime before the meeting started, I was talking to the 𝐟𝐸𝐫𝐬𝐿 commander, the one that didn't show up on the 24th, and I was talking to him, and you know, I started to slowly let out some, you know, feelings and concerns, and it's like, I'm concerned. I mean, I want to do the drill commands, but I don't think this commander's going to let me and such, and I'm very concerned, and he was trying to uplift me and everything, as well as, you know, things other than just the drill commands, I could be sure. But anyway, you know what? I went home that night, and I put on Facebook, you know, tonight could not have been better. Honestly, the first night of 2017 could not have been better for about 99% of it. I mean, it went perfect, but let me tell you what really made it perfect. Right toward the very end, after, you know, I went through explaining everything and such, I mean, I went through explaining all of it, and at the very end, this commander sat across from me who looked me in the eye and said, "No, you can't." He started to move all the tables, you know, push them back, saying, "Okay, everybody get in the middle. Commander Matthew is going to teach you the drill commands." And he looked at me and said, Go on, Matthew," and just encouraged me and said, "Go on." And I'm like, wow. And so I'm like, okay, so here, this is attention, this is stress right dress, this is formation and all that, and I got to start teaching the drill commands for the first time in my life to the Discovery Rangers. And it's like, how? It's like, well, I did say something to him about it. I did say something like, you know, I mean, it was so fast, I didn't think that he would hear. Or the 𝐟𝐸𝐫𝐬𝐿 commander privately talked to him before the meeting started. I don't know how, but it was like, you know, it was like God right there. I mean, orchestrating all of that, you know, for the betterment and the future of these boys growing up and developing into being godly leaders and all that. So that was the first night. There were other couple of little details that I won't bore you with, but beyond that, it was an excellent night and such. And I just enjoyed it. And then, you know, if the other guy would have stayed with Discovery Rangers, if there wasn't that switch, I don't think we'd have Discovery Rangers as it was today, because from 2017 all the way to 2019, for 2 academic years, he has really been a wonderful asset to Discovery Rangers. We worked together, we talked to each other, we took each other's ideas, we met down the middle, and we did it. And you know, it's a good thing I remained optimistic the entire time. I mean, ever since the first time, like at the Starbucks meeting, I told him, "Welcome to Discovery Rangers," and I smiled at him, he smiled at me, and we had a great talk. And I'm like, we're going to make this work, and frankly, it worked even 1,000 or 1,000,000 times better than I thought. So anyway, lessons are learned, and that's basically my story for in that regard. So I mean, still it wasn't entirely nice what he said to me, but at the same time we became even better and closer partners, friends, and made Discovery Rangers for the boys better than it would have, in my opinion. So it was just beautiful, it was just wonderful. Okay, so now a brief assessment, I'll try to make this brief, is how do I feel after saying all of that, after unloading all of that? I'm feeling, you know, good. Maybe not as good as the end of my other videos, August 18th, 19th video, and the August 21st video, because, you know, those videos, you know, I put them out there. I even hyper-shared them on Twitter and such, and, you know, they hardly got around. So I'm just wondering if a lot of people are listening to, well, apparently a lot of people are not. And it's not that I'm, you know, trying to force myself on other people, especially uninterested people who don't thoroughly want to hear my side of the story of autism. And there have been people who have watched those videos. I'm not saying nobody has. And I've even gotten, you know, a very fantastic compliment from one of my friends in Spain, one of my YouTube friends in Spain. A good compliment and encouragement and such. But, you know, the fact that it got, you know, very little views, and believe me, I'm not surprised, in fact. But, you know, after, you know, 3 years and also becoming an author and working hard to, you know, the only reason I want this channel and all my social media platforms to get big is not to be in the status of, you know, the celebrities or the singers or whatnot. I want to share. I'm one of those people that want to share, not to put myself on a pedestal for people to worship. I wouldn't even allow that and such. I want to share my side of things and my perspective, and also encourage at the same time. And, you know, part of having maximum closure is, you know, being heard by a lot more people. And I know that this video is over an hour and the other one was, you know, over 40 minutes. But at the same time, I understand that not a lot of people would watch it and such, especially the big length might turn them off. But I just want to share with whoever wants to listen. And, you know, the more views I get, the more, you know, closure I have to that, especially as long as the main takeaway, the main messages gets across. And I've said that frontwards and backwards in this video and other videos in the past, with the major takeaways, like don't bottle things up inside and all that. But also for the people who are bullies, if they're a bully, they need to stop being bullies. And also for the people that mistreated me, just contact me privately and, you know, apologize, and that would also be the maximum closure. And then also think about that for next time, so that you don't treat me like you did. So anyway, that's pretty much, you know, it, and that's my assessment. So yeah, feeling, you know, a good deep breath there, but, you know, not entirely. But I'm feeling good and better that after 3 years I released this. So anyway, stay strong. Have an excellent rest of, you know, your day or night, whenever you're watching this, morning, noon, or night, whatever season you're in, whatever year that you're in watching this. Be blessed, stay strong, stay healthy, and have an excellent day.